Hi, I'm Justin. I'm an alcoholic. I've been through the process with the help of a Big Book Step Study sponsor. My sponsor did the steps the same way. I had the help of a higher power that I developed, developed a relationship with this higher power through my writing, through this process. I practice the ladder steps every day, and I've made some amends. So I'm really happy to be here. This is my home group. This is where I got out of a treatment center, a 28-day treatment center on a Friday night in April of 2018, and I came here on a Saturday morning, and I've been coming here ever since. And this is where I found my sponsor. This is where I, really started to understand my part in this, really to see what my behavior did, not what everybody else's behavior did. We see their behaviors, we write it down here on our list, but and from this point forward, I was focused on what my part of the problem, which was, to me, a real miracle. So on the fourth step, it just says we're going to make our inventory, right? And to make our inventory, I had a list. My sponsor gave me instructions to make a list of anybody I had negative interactions with, people I had problems with from my whole life, people's institutions and principles. And I didn't know, and it was I think deliberately kind of vague, It wasn't like you should have 50 or you should have 300 of these or you should have however many. It was just write your list, and it's funny because as soon as I did, I started writing my list, and I went to my therapist, and I was like, what the hell does this have to do with drinking? Why does he want me to write this list? What is this list for? And she just looked at me and she goes, it's got everything to do with drinking. Everything. Literally everything. Like this is what this is about. And I really, and it's absolutely true. Absolutely true. And I think when it talks about causes and conditions and resentment being the number one offender, that one, this is serious language in here, right? When it talks about this, it's going to kill us, this is definitely going to kill us. These things are fatal, fatal. Absolutely terrifying, And it says here, we asked ourselves why we were angry. And I was born angry. Literally born angry, Like, my parents talk about my first Christmas throwing Christmas presents. Who throws Christmas presents? Like, I didn't know. I was angry before I knew what that was, I was just born that way. So, by the time I was a teenager, just a life literally just fighting everyone and everything. It says that in another part of this book, that I ceased fighting everyone and everything. And when I read that, I'm like, that is the best description of me. If you ask somebody that knows me and they say, what's Justin like? That would describe me perfectly, because that's exactly what it was. Fought everybody, teachers, parents, brothers, cousins, you name it, everybody, Luckily not cops. That one I was able to stay away from. But for me, like, how do you find out why you're angry? How do you see how you're angry? Why am I angry? Well, it was right here, Like, this literally tells me why. Is I wanted everybody to do what I wanted them to do. They weren't doing what I wanted them to do. One of the first names on my list, I went through it, and for me, it was like the heavy hitters first, like my mom, my dad, my brothers, went right for the real serious ones for me. And I remember I used to get so mad when they would call me up, or my parents would talk to my brothers and try to get my brothers to call me up and talk to me about my drinking. And I remember one time specifically, my brother called me up, and you could tell he was driving in his truck, and he was smoking a joint, and he was calling me and telling me about my drinking. And I flipped out. You know what I mean? Like, I flipped out. I was like, who the hell are you? Why are you telling me about this and that? And it says, to see what the other people did is as far as most of us ever got. And that's exactly what I did. I saw that he was calling me because he was sick of hearing it. He did love me, and we're very close and everything, but he didn't stand a chance talking me out of drinking. And my thing, when I find out through here, what did I want? I wanted to not be questioned. I wanted to not be questioned. I wanted to have nobody tell me. Nobody should have ever said, Justin, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be doing that. I tell the story in the beginners meeting. I talk all the time about throwing a bat at my coach in Little League. And it's like, and I got kicked out of Little League forever. And the reason I threw the bat was I struck out because I was chirping at the umpire and he was teaching me a lesson. And then my coach started telling me, Justin, that's why you don't chirp at the umpire. My solution to that, the truth, was to throw a bat at him and get banned from Little League, right? So he tells me the absolute truth. If you chirp at the umpire, you're going to get bad calls, right? And to me, all I saw was this guy's embarrassing me in front of people. He's embarrassing me, not me embarrassing me, not me yelling at the umpire, a 10-year-old staring and screaming at a grown man. He's embarrassing me. And that's as far as most of us ever got, until this point. And at this point, with the help of my sponsor, and going through this, and seeing that just page after page after page was people not doing what I wanted them to do, people questioning me, people looking for accountability from me, and that to me was like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, wait, this whole thing was really me? This is, starting to see the picture of Justin in the center of all this craziness and all this chaos and all this turmoil and problems with my wife, my parents, my brothers, my boss, my everything. You name it. Just go right through the list. Anybody around me, I had problems with them. But it was all them, according to me. So, coming here and I still can't believe it. Last night, I wanted to look through this and say, kind of refresh myself before I came in here. And you really look at it, and it's like, I'm so glad. I didn't know if I was going to keep this, and I am so glad I did. I am so glad I did. I don't know if I'd want to dwell on it, a lot, but I do think to come back at this and to see what my logic was in the beginning and in the end. Thankfully, there's been some improvement, right? But still, as we all know, that's a daily thing. This is a daily reprieve based on the maintenance of our spiritual condition, as it says in another step. But to me, that is absolutely. Oh man, I didn't even start this timer. Do you know how long? Okay. I have a tendency to ramble. But as far as we ever got, maintenance and growth of our spiritual experience. Yeah. So the way that this worked for me, I met with my sponsor every day after this meeting, and we went through this, I think, every week for, I don't know if it was 2 years. It was a long time. It was over a year. And as we were going through this, and it talks about this too, when we start to see this picture, and you started to develop an awareness of my behavior, and I started to develop a relationship, because at this point, my sponsor, the instructions I got in my third step were to pray every day in the morning, ask to not have to ask for God to keep me away from a drink or a drug, and then do certain things like that, start to develop these habits and behaviors that it talks about in here to kind of, I don't know, I call it being a grown-up a little bit for me, because it felt like having a plan, getting up in the morning, having a plan and an intention and thoughts about what I was going to do, instead of just waking up late, flying into the office, smelling like booze, just an absolute train wreck of a person, and this is getting up in the morning and taking care of myself and praying and thinking about other people and oh my God, this is a real grown-up life, which is something that I wasn't good at. I wasn't good at taking care of myself. I wasn't good at eating when I was supposed to. I wasn't good at taking medicine. I wasn't good at any of that stuff. I did only what I absolutely had to do. I would eat right by Elio's at 2 o'clock in the morning because I hadn't eaten anything all day, and because I didn't want to fill up. drinking. So it was like I had to learn, like around this time, start to actually learn about taking care of myself too. And I know it's not part of this, but that was for me, part of recovery was learning literally how to eat. Like how to not eat bowls of ice cream at 2:00 in the morning and then wonder why I can't sleep, So part of this, like all of this stuff really started to change me, around this point. I would say about halfway through my 4th step, I started to notice little differences. And I really believe that this was as a result of the spiritual relationship I started to develop with my higher power, was these little intuitive things used to happen. Like they started to happen for me where I would start to know the right thing to say and just to realize that sometimes saying nothing was the right thing. In fact, most of the time, that was the best thing to do, was to not say anything, just to especially dealing with like my wife or something, because at this point too, I was still in early recovery and still kind of thinking that, there's going to be a parade every time I do the right thing, and everybody's going to be like, wow, he quit drinking. That's so great. Let's literally a parade or carried off the field like Rudy, something like that, But I think, I at that point was like, I mean, you almost couldn't like keep me away from finishing this. Like I knew at that point, when I started to see that, I started to say, this is real. Because I didn't think it was. I was one of those people who thought, this isn't going to work for me. I had a problem a little bit with the spiritual stuff, and right away I'm like, oh, this is real, man. This is working, and people are noticing a difference. And people told me too that other people would see the difference in me before I saw it, And I didn't realize that was true too, that a lot of times people can see that I'm angry when I don't know I am. When people start asking me, hey, are you all right? I'm like, and I'm just like, yeah, all right, I'm all right. And it's like, when people start asking me that now, I think about it and I realize, yeah, I actually probably am angry. Maybe there is something going on here. I've been asked that 3 times today, like, not today, I'm just saying, if I had been asked that 3 times today, I would start to look at myself and say, is that true? Is that what's going on here? Am I, so that is a direct result of this, Before this, I could never be part of the problem, right? So like literally like this started to you start to really truly see my part in everything. And the good news is, my sponsor says, and it's a great thing, if the good news is if I'm the problem, there's something I can do about it, right? Whereas the other part of this is like you can't control people, places, and things, right? So the thing we can control is ourselves. The thing I can control is me. I can control sometimes can control my mouth. Sometimes I can say the right thing. Sometimes I can do the right thing. How often that happens, the success ratio or whatever of that is directly related to how I do in the morning. For me, do I do the stuff that I'm supposed to do in the morning? Do I pray? Am I living within the day, or am I thinking about 4 days from now all the time, or 4 days before? Living in the day is all of this stuff is literally like it's incredible. Someday, if you guys are doing this work and you're sitting up here and you're looking at it, it's really amazing. Like it's really amazing reading back through this when you can really truly see spiritual growth. If you continue rowing the boat and you see spiritual growth and you realize that the ideas that started to develop here, and the logic that you start to apply to like AA applies to everywhere else, like you start to take this into other parts of your life, or I started taking this into other parts of my life, and I started, being able to keep my mouth shut with not just my wife, but with my boss, my coworkers, with other people, and then all of a sudden those relationships started getting better. And after a while, it's like, you realize, like, I don't want to drink and I'm not angry anymore. How did that happen? You know what I mean? Like, it was a direct result for me of this and a higher power. And I can still get angry, and I can still say stupid things, and I can still go backwards really quickly, especially if I get my feelings hurt, or something, or I was talking with my sponsor earlier, and it's like sometimes I'm good when I know like something's on the horizon. A meeting, a review with my boss. Like I gotta really sit down. Like I just had that like 2 weeks ago, and I was like I knew it was coming. It was gonna be at 8:30 in the morning, so I was up at 8, and I prayed. I said, just whatever he says, just you gotta just it's okay, whatever it is. It turned out fine. Everything was great, But the old Justin would have started telling himself stories, Oh, when he says this, when he calls me on this, I'm gonna say this, and all this stuff. And it's like just a completely wasted Like it talks about that here too. Like what a waste that is. The grouch and the brainstorm are not for us. It says like, that sitting back and thinking about it. And I can see the future too, and I can tell you what he's gonna say tomorrow, and it's the biggest waste of time ever, and I go back to the relationship that I developed with my higher power. And if I take things to my higher power, or I take things to my sponsor, who generally almost every time I think says, have you prayed on it? Like that, he steers you in the right way. The whole teach a man to fish instead of giving him a fish, right? And I think like I just can't imagine, like, I don't know. I shudder to think about, like, what happened if this wasn't my first meeting, Like the fact that I landed here in this place with these people, and Mike and Bob and my sponsor and all these other people that we've heard for almost 5 years talk about this, and landing here and seeing that there was true happiness. They were happy to be here, smiling, making coffee. Couldn't believe it. Like I couldn't believe it, and I said, I want that. How do they get that? And it was this. It was absolutely this. And I mean, I think too. I had a daughter. I have a daughter, and the fact that I have like a process to think about. How do I be useful to her instead of controlling her? Imagine if I'm trying to control her her whole life, telling her what to do all the time. Oh my God, So I feel like this saves my life every day. It makes my life, everybody's life around me better. And I don't think I have any other notes here. Let me see. Yeah, my life now is really good. It's better than I ever thought it could be. I say yes to everything. Someone asks me, yeah, can you do it? Yep. Can you do it? Yep. I hate it when someone asks me to help move or whatever, and it's like, I just say yes, because that could be me. So I try to say yes to everything. I try to be open with people and be friendly and be always thinking too. My sponsor says it's so good. What can I bring to the table? What can I bring to this situation, event, party, whatever it is? What can I bring to it instead of what can I get from it? Because that's all I ever saw is what could I get? Why am I going to go over there? What am I getting out of that? And to live like that, to live where you're thinking about other people, and live where when something goes wrong and you get upset about something, there's something you can do about it. There's a process, there's an instruction thing. I can do something about this because the problem is me. And that's the best gift. I mean, sobriety, this wouldn't exist without sobriety. But I think you can have sobriety without this gift, without the gift of this process, without the gift of having these tools to where when something goes wrong in your life or you get some phone call, the dreaded phone call. There was a guy at the High Noon who's no longer with us, and he was talking about being 30-something years sober and hadn't thought about a drink in decades, and you get a phone call that your son's gone or something happens. And all of a sudden, the drinking came back, the thought of drinking came back in a way that he hadn't felt in decades, So how do you prepare yourself for anything like that? I don't know how I'd prepare myself if anything ever happened to my daughter. But I do know that the right thing to do would be this. No matter what happens, I would have to go to this work, and I would have something to do. It's not, like you said, the good news is that there is something we can do about it. There is something we can do. We can develop, we can do some work, and have a life that I didn't know was possible. I had no idea, and I'm truly grateful. I'm grateful to Mike, I'm grateful to all of you. I'm so happy that this is the meeting that I landed. I'm grateful to Bob, and thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.